Hello and welcome to Business Highlights, the podcast about African businesses and organizations and the histories and playbooks behind them. I am your host, Alan Wasega. In this episode, we highlight the story of Ongoza Cyber Hub, OCH, a program dedicated to cultivating the next generation of cybersecurity leaders across Africa. I talked to its founder, Martin Mwangi, a seasoned cybersecurity and tech leader who presently serves as the country director at Serianu Botswana. We explore OCH's mission, the structure it follows to achieve this mission, as well as Martin's pathway into this problem space. Please enjoy my conversation with Martin. Just from the very top, because I believe you operate in the educational sector, and I want to ask from the very start is what is broken, if I may use that term, about the current education system that necessitates the need for mentorship programs such as OCH.
Alan, thank you very much for having me. If I can define what is broken, that's a good question. In one word, platform to be relevance. Relevance in this case is students who are leaving universities, colleges, and higher learning education, finding relevance in what they have studied in schools in their workplaces. The extent of the relevance varies depending on the institutions. There are students who are very excited, and I think that has been common to a lot of us who have gone through education in university. You're very excited, only to get to the workplace and to realize that there's very little that you are taught in schools that can help you in the workplace. It becomes so common that we think that's normal. But when you get to hear what is happening in different countries, even outside Africa, you just get to appreciate that there should be a better experience and a smoother transition that students should have, especially in tech, by the time they're getting their workplace. And I think mentorship programs come to bridge that gap, the gap of relevance, and helping the academia find your relevance in the workplace, and also helping the industry find relevance in academia. And the closer we bridge that gap, the easier it becomes for those who are transitioning from universities and colleges to the industry.
So, relevance mostly?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have like a personal story related to that? Now, because I most of the time I find people who found things have kind of like a personal story that they relate to. And so just curious about now your background as well. And you can go as early as you want. And maybe just give us a background how you came into this problem space and where your motivations came from.
That's a good question. The background story to this for me, it's very personal for me. And when I finished university and I did a Bachelor of Science in Information Technology. That was in Jomo Kenyatta University, Agriculture and Technology. When I went to university first, I was told that, I was told not to pick the course that I did. That was IT, and indeed, IT for me was not a selection that I wanted. It was, let me say, it was by chance that I did IT. But then, towards my third year, fourth year, I began asking myself, what will I do? And I remember leaving class on one of the days, and myself and a friend of mine, he asked me, Martin, we are finishing school next year, and we asked ourselves, what can we do? That was not an easy question. It brings reality to what you're doing. and you begin asking yourself, what can I really do? It's unfortunate, I would say, and the reality for, especially for technical courses, but it's more a show than a tell. The employer wants to see what you can do. They want to see the application that you can develop. So fast forward, I'm in fourth year. I don't think I'm very excited about software engineering. I don't seem to be very excited about a career in programming in future, although I have my skills in that. But I have an interest in anything security, and that's where this journey started. And I will tell my peers and classmates that when I finish school, I'm going to pursue a career in cybersecurity. And cybersecurity back then was very green. Now, fast forward for me, I'm done with school, and I get an interview at Serianu. And Serianu then was a startup. We just started, and I remember my experience during the interview, and it really motivates me to continue doing what I'm doing. Different from many experiences, and even most of the mentees that I work with right now are way ahead from where I was. And for me, that is a success, because my story is I went into an interview thinking that the content that I had prepared for the interview panel was on point, only to realize that there was nothing that I knew. I could not even answer what a ping command is. And for those of you who are in technology, you know that at least you should know what a ping command does. It was a humbling experience for me, but I was very honest. I was candid. Would I do it again? I'm not sure, but there was some passion and motivation that pushed me to just see myself in the cybersecurity space, although I was still very green then. So my experience then was so humbling, and by the time I was done with the interview, my head was actually hot, literally. I met with a friend of mine after the interview in Nairobi, and we just sharing my experience. I was like, no, this was tough. I look back and I think my experience can be an easy experience for anyone else who is pursuing a career in cybersecurity. Now, the funny thing is, I did not expect to even pursue a career in cybersecurity in tech, because there are a lot of different paths that one can take in cybersecurity. You can decide to go the non-technical side. You can also decide to go the technical side. So there's a lot of mentorship that has helped me get to where I am. I am a product of a lot of mentors who have guided me and believed in me and sort of pushed me and sort of as well seen the potential that I could not see. And I think that's what mentorship is about. Mentorship is about looking at people who have a lot of potential, but because of the environment that they have just joined that might be so intimidating, a mentor is able to look at these people and see the potential in them and just push them. And they don't really help them per se, because the mentees and the people who are pursuing their career fields and their career paths, they have that potential in them. But sometimes what they need is the confidence and the trust and the guidance to know that I need 3 months to pursue what I'm doing. What I'm doing right now is going to take me in 1 year. So again, back, Alan, to the question that was my experience. I look back and I remember getting into an interview and the interviewer asking me, what do you know? Because I could not answer any of these questions. And they asked me, what do you know? So that was quite humbling. And I look back for me, and I'm just excited to be in tech and to be in cybersecurity, because it's been a journey, and all I want is for that journey to be a better journey for anyone else who is pursuing a career in cybersecurity.
Okay. So I'm curious about now, what do you know right now? So could you just tell us about, so what do you do at this point in time and how that growth has been for you from that, let me call you a greenie, from the person who couldn't really explain what a ping command does to now yourself right now, professionally?
Professionally, I started my journey in Serianu. I'm still in Serianu, and Serianu is a cybersecurity consulting firm. And when I started off, I started as consultant, but in the offensive side. In the offensive side, what I mean by that is I would help organizations understand their weaknesses in a space we call vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So that's where my journey in cybersecurity started. And with time, I then went to the offensive, to the defensive side of things. And the defensive is going to the other side and thinking in the shoes of the defender, the person who is being attacked. And again, asking yourself, what can you do to help an organization prevent or detect or even respond to cybersecurity attacks? And I spent some time again doing that. And as I was in the defensive side, I was also in what we call the build side of things, the engineering. Engineering is where I spend time again with organizations to not only help them defend, but implementing, managing solutions and capabilities that can help them do that. So it's been a whole circle in my career, and I've been very fortunate to work with Serianu, because the exposure that I have gotten over the last 10 years has been amazing. I look back at the 10 years, and for me, it's like last year. It's been such an adventure of going into organizations, hacking, quote unquote, because we hack ethically. And I remember the first organization that we did, that I did a pen test. I went to an organization, and of course, having been given consent by the organization, I remember calling the IT manager, and from his phone, it showed the name, "You have been hacked," and that it was exciting, and it was as well amazing, and getting to do what a hacker does ethically. I think that's a dream for a lot of people, and I've gotten to do that over the years. I've also gotten to play in the solution space, looking at all these different cybersecurity platforms and technologies that, again, I can deploy and I can manage within an organization, and now think through what I would have done to attack and compromise the same network, and set up controls and alarms, if I can use that word, that if triggered would say, hey, there's an intruder. And again, now helping the organization think like an attacker and in the shoes of a defender. That for me has been so exciting. So that's where my journey started. And with time, I then got to begin thinking more in the shoes of the business itself, which was another transition in my career, where I had to find the relevance of my expertise from a technology side in the context of a business. And what that means is, when you assess an organization and you identify all these vulnerabilities, all these gaps that they need to fix, a lot of the key decision makers are not necessarily concerned about the exciting technical findings that we have. For them, the key question they want to know is, what does this mean for me as a business? So I would go into a board meeting or a management to present the findings to a management team, and I would realize that there's a bit of skill that goes in to find the relevance and to communicate my findings. And that for me was another adventure. learning the skill of communication, learning the skill of interacting with people. When I was for the major part of my initial 4 5 years, I was sort of an introvert. I still have my introverts even now, but I have been forced to work more with people. And I think that for me was a stretch in my career. Going in and just getting to work a lot with people was a second adventure and transition in my career. And I spent time doing that. And the goal of doing that was to help me communicate my findings. So with time, I think for the last 5 or so years, the focus of my career has been to go into organizations and help them mature their cybersecurity posture. That for me is personal, and it gives me a lot of fulfillment to see an organization that was very vulnerable and exposed, and to see their business grow as a result of cybersecurity as one of the enablers. So that has been my journey, Alan.
Okay, and I think you've mentioned things of interest to me in terms of your career journey being an adventure to you. And at the same time, what I've picked is some sort of leadership and communication. And so those are some of the key skills that I've gotten in. And at the same time, you have to be technically competent to actually do your job. And that brings me full cycle now back to OCH, because I believe those are some of the components that you're trying to build into the program. But just for the sake of our audience, what is OCH itself, and what does it do, and what are you trying to build with it?
Ongoza CyberHub, OCH, is cybersecurity program committed to mentoring cybersecurity practitioners into future and current cybersecurity leaders. This journey started with webinars. So 2 years ago, I realized that I was in a point in my career where I really had to give back to the community. And as much as I was doing that for a mentorship one-on-one, and I've been working with Camilino for a long time. And the question I asked myself is, how can I increase the impact of what I am doing? And I began with webinars, and that was in 2022, February. And every month I will do cybersecurity webinars, inviting different industry experts to come and speak about their cybersecurity journeys. And the goal of that was to help those who are pursuing a career in cybersecurity make a decision. That transitioned into a bit of structure. So as I was doing that initially, the goal was, let's just engage with the cybersecurity community. Let's see how we can help people make a decision. Let's help the undecided. Let's also help those who have just begun their cybersecurity career path, especially those who are in their 1 year, their first and the second year in their organizations. Let's help those who are in the larger IT space and are already working, but want to transition to cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Let us also help those who are in between. I graduated last year. I'm a recent graduate. I am not sure what to do. In between there is a possibility of you losing track of your career path if you don't have exposure in that cybersecurity is an option. Those were the different tips that I found myself interacting with. There was a group of students. There's a group of recent graduates. There's a group of people who are working. And it was a mix of cybersecurity enthusiasts. An enthusiast in this case is somebody who has interest And that's all they have. They have interest. They don't have skills. They don't have experience. They can't go for an interview. So a lot of people that I interacted with when I began these webinars were just cybersecurity enthusiasts. And with time, that gained traction. And I would have people reach out to me and ask, "Hey, Martin, how can you help me? I like the talk that we had. What does this mean for me?" And those will now get personalized. And I like the journey that I was taking, because remember, it's taking me back to my own journey. I see myself in the same struggle that these people are going through, because I went through the same struggle.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I think that we have done those webinars for long enough, and I'm asking myself, okay, it's been 11, 12 months. What do we do? And sorry, that was February 2023, not 2022. So that's when we began those webinars. And fast forward, I decided, can we put together some strategies, because you can only do too much for everyone. I needed to increase the impact yet again by having a focused group that I can work with and give more. And that's where this journey started in January 2024. So Ongoza Cyber Hub is a space that allows us to impact future cybersecurity leaders in two spaces. Number one is in the leadership space, and number two is in the innovation space. That's what we're trying to do, Alan, with cybersecurity enthusiasts and transforming their enthusiasm into leadership in the cybersecurity space.
Okay, so I'm interested in that. Like, when you specify two things, so you're trying to build both leaders and innovators in the cyberspace. What's the importance of the two, and do they exist? Are they mutually exclusive in a way that most people either have one but not the two combined? Is that the case that you've noticed around? So why are the two areas a key focus for you?
I have always been, I would say, a student of leadership. Leadership has always been interesting topic for me. And I think in the cybersecurity and tech space, the struggle I had in my own path is with all the technical expertise, I realized that it takes something else for you to influence your community. It takes you more than your technical skills to do that. There are a lot of what we call non-technical skills, which I think are beyond that. They are your people skills. They are your human skills. The focus of our education focuses more on our technical skills than the human and the people skills. And in my own journey, I realized that if I was exposed more to the human and the people skills, I would have been a better person professionally right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now there are pockets of people who have the combination of the two. We are very good cybersecurity leaders. And by cybersecurity leader is somebody who is all-rounded. What I'm trying to do is to help cybersecurity enthusiasts understand that there is a journey beyond your technical expertise. But beyond that, this is what that means. And these are the skills that you need to develop yourself as a leader. Because leadership is about influence. It is about thinking about what the value that you already have technically or in your field, and using that value to impact your own community. And your field can be, I want to impact my people at work, my colleagues at work. I want to go back to my high school, my former high school, and I want to help them. I want to go to a conference and I want to share my thoughts. That space for me was a bit of a struggle. And there was a transition there that I had to make. And again, I had to learn that. And thankfully, I had mentors who guided me in that journey. Mm. So leadership and the innovation in cybersecurity right now are two different things, I would say. But preferably, a cybersecurity leader should have a combination of.
Okay. Okay, I get that. And so narrowing down on OCH itself, and how do you deliver the leadership and the innovation, let me call them lessons, to your mentees? And then that brings me to the part of what are the characteristics of these mentees? Are they students because you say they are cybersecurity enthusiasts? So are they students? Do they have to be students for one? Or is it anyone can join in? So what are the characteristics of your mentees? And do you have mentors who help you deliver your program? And exactly how do you kind of like structure your program?
Our current structure, our target right now has a focus on the three groups. We have students, we have recent graduates, and we also have people who are working, and not necessarily in the cybersecurity space, but in the IT space. For me, the motivation of working and helping somebody who is finding relevance and growth in their cybersecurity career is initiative. I'm looking for people who have initiative and also who have a certain threshold of knowledge. So this is somebody who has a background, say, in technology or in computer science, and they're looking to transition into a cybersecurity career. That has been our target audience. Once in a while, you come across people who are not doing anything related to computer science or IT or a technical degree or course in university or college. But you find certain people who don't have a background in that, but they have a lot of curiosity. And I'm also interested in such people because there's a space for them in cybersecurity. So that has been our target audience, students, recent graduates, and those who are already working, whether in IT or already in cybersecurity. How do we deliver the leadership and the technical knowledge to our current mentees? The way we are doing that is we look at the outcome and then we work backwards. So it's a very practical program. I'm looking 9 months into the program, and the question I ask myself is, what is an impactful leader in the cybersecurity space? What does that look like? And remember, leadership in itself, I don't think it's one thing that you can just define and say this is leadership. There are different variances of leadership. I think somebody is able to go and share their thoughts in the form of a webinar, but they just graduated from school. There's an element of leading in their space. There's a journey they have started. There's impact that they are making. Somebody who has developed a very good platform, and out of that, they have developed a platform that is not only able to deliver value to a business, but has certain resilience against cyber attacks, and then goes on LinkedIn and is able to communicate what they have done through that space. There is a thought leadership that they are also doing, and there's an element as well of leadership. So what we are doing right now is we are looking at the outcome and we are asking ourselves, what is the kind of leader that we want? What do we want of the mentee by the time they are done with their 9 months or with the 10 months? What does that mentee look like? And I think it is it takes beyond 3 months or 4 months to really find value that you can communicate to a future employer, or value that you can communicate to a community. So we are looking back and we're asking ourselves, what are those skills that are minimum that we want to have in our mentees? And the way we now deliver it is, rather than us just telling them is through instructor-based learning, why don't you bring in industry experts who are doing this? And these industry experts can actually walk the journey with it. And as they are walking the journey with them, it helps them take their technical expertise from, say, a 0 or a 1 to a 9 or an 8 or a 7 within a number of months. Can we also ask ourselves, with these skills, what is the level of employability of these mentees? Can we bring people in the industries who can help the same mentee as they are going through their technical journey and they're getting excited about their technical knowledge and say they're becoming better defenders? Can we also help them at the same time develop the right knowledge, the right skills to communicate the knowledge that they are receiving to an employer? Can we also help them think about somebody who is working already in their 1 year, in their 2 years? What are the challenges that they're likely to find in an organization? Challenges might be, these are new environments. Challenges might be, these are new people. Challenges might be, I might be unwell. I might have burnout as I'm working. What was exciting can change over time, depending on the environment they have at work. Why don't we think about those challenges and bring people, again, industry experts and practitioners who, again, can develop that in our mentees? The outcome of that is that we have somebody who, over a period of time, has not only acquired technical knowledge, but has the ability to communicate the knowledge that they have, number one, is confident enough to do that, has already done a bit of that, has some level of resilience at work, and they not only have their technical expertise now, but over the months that we have spent with them, they have an appreciation of what we call the bigger picture of their career. If we can paint that in a mentee and have 70 to 80% of that in a mentee, by the time we are done with the program, that is a success.
Okay. Martin, I think you mentioned something that is of interest to me, and I think mentorship in itself is a relationship between a mentee and the mentor. And because it's a relationship, there has to be kind of like some to give and take and some to bare minimums. So in your experience, what makes a good mentee and what makes a good mentor? It could be general and even within now the space in which you operate.
What makes a good mentee is interest and willingness, initiative. Interest is, I as a mentor, I'm in a conference, I'm speaking, and somebody approaches me and says, hey, I want, that was a very good talk. I'm actually looking for a job. That does not interest me. I'll find a second person. That was a very good presentation. Thank you so much for that. That shows me interest. But there are people again who go beyond that. They'll be, Martin, that was a very good presentation. I actually liked that you talked about Wazoo. I've actually been testing out Wazoo, but I I didn't know what to do beyond that. Now that tells me that there is beyond interest, there is initiative. There are mentees who have interest, but the interest does not translate into initiative. And some of them, it might be because of the environment. So sometimes if you spend some time with them, you can tell, okay, there is some level of initiative. But you see, that takes time, and mentors don't have time. So what makes a good mentee? A good mentee needs to have interest. And it is natural. You can tell. It is not forced. A good mentee has interest. They have initiative. They go beyond the excitement and what we call enthusiasm. So these are good flashy words. But behind that, these are people who have no clue what they are doing most of the time, but they're still doing it. They're going to these YouTube videos. They're trying to find out what is cybersecurity. So the next time they find somebody who is talking about what they're doing, they're so excited, but there's something beyond the excitement. It's something they have been practicing, although they're not very clear about what they're doing. Now that forms a good mentee. A good mentee is not too needy. They have a bit of an idea of where they're going, but there's clarity that they lack. That forms a good mentors. On the other hand, people who are very good at what they do. I don't think mentors are necessarily people who have been doing what they're doing for 5 years, for 10 years, no. I think anyone as early as 1 year, or even sometimes as early as 6 months into what you're doing, you can begin thinking about how can I use my knowledge to help somebody become better than how I was when I joined my field. I think that's all it takes to start this mentorship journey. But good mentors have some qualities as well. Good mentors have an eye for talent. They are able to identify interests. Good mentors will identify and connect between interest and initiative. Good mentors, because of their experience in multifaceted fields or paths in their own career, can tell you, why don't you try this path? And you finally find that, wow, I'm so glad I did that. Those are mentors. Mentors have that ability. So it has been, and I'm speaking this out of experience. There are decisions that I make career-wise, and they were because of simple direction from my mentors. Like, why don't you try this? And because I trust in their expertise and I trust in their experience, later on, I realized that I'm so glad I did that. It takes a lot of hard work from you. Yeah. It helps you to work smart. Good mentors help you to do that. Mentors themselves may not give you a job, but they will give you experience and exposure that is way more than a job.
Yeah.
I think that defines mentors and mentees.
Okay. Interesting. So you've been running OCH for formally now since the beginning of the year. And have you noted or have you experienced some problems or challenges? And what have some of those been? And generally, how do you try to overcome them? If you do overcome them, because I believe you do.
Running a mentorship program that goes beyond generic knowledge to put in some structure is a lot of work. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. It doesn't mean that it's not doable, but it's a lot of work. What does it take? It needs a lot of effort. It needs a lot of, it's a team sport. A team sport between the mentor and the mentee. The challenge, I think for me, has been in finding the right mentees. Even within the program, identifying who has beyond interest. who has initiative. That takes time. Considering that I'm doing this amongst many other things that I'm doing, it means that you don't do it very well. And there is a best version of it. I don't think with one person you can really achieve the best version of that. But I think we are slowly getting into the sweet spot of mentees who have very good initiative, who have interest, and what that is doing is that it is giving the same reciprocating energy to the mentors. I've also been fortunate enough to find like-minded industry experts, and we're in a very good community. Every time I reach out to an industry expert, somebody who is into the defense space, cyber defense, somebody who is in the offensive, somebody who's doing risk governance, and ask, hey, would you be willing to speak to people who are looking to get information about your career space in cybersecurity? These people are very willing, but they're also very busy. So I've been fortunate enough to have a few of them who commit their time to walking the journey with mentees over a period of time. So that's how that has been the saving grace, I would say, because you can only do certain things alone, and big things are not achieved alone. You can never do them alone. You need a team. You need people who buy into the same vision. And all I'm doing here is being a bridge between people who are looking to advance and succeed in their careers. And surprisingly, there are also people who have been very good and who are very good at what they're doing. And the question they have been asking themselves, how can I help others? And I get fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time. So it's been a journey so far of around 6-7 months. We are making good progress, and we are seeing transformation, I would say.
Okay. Thank you so much, Martin, for that. And I just want to focus a little bit more on yourself now. And generally, because I've interacted with you for a while, and as you mentioned even earlier, leadership is something that you think about, that you're passionate about. And so how do you think about leadership just in general, and as you grow OCH as a company now and as an organization? And then what are some leadership principles, practices, or activities that you had to adopt to suit OCH's needs?
Wow, it's a big question. Leadership, I think, is about your life. Yeah, I think it's leadership is influence. It's not control. I go to work with people who live this. So it's a culture that a person is able to create. And unfortunately, a lot of the bad experiences that we have in life are an outcome of a culture that somebody created because they had a level of influence. Maybe you could not talk back. And I think leaders are simply, if I could pick one word, I think leaders are people who have influence. But then it goes beyond that, because leadership is the ability for you to influence others. But it just goes beyond influencing them. It's influencing them to live their purpose, or influencing them to live the organization's purpose that should be built around their own values. So those are some of the words that pop up when you think about leadership. Influence, purpose, the question of why. Why am I doing this? And leaders help you answer that question, why. And they also help create a good environment. You just feel you want to continue doing what you're doing. You might not have enough money, but they just give you that motivation. I think that's another common denominator of leaders. When I think about leaders as well, there's a lot of motivation and passion that they themselves have, but they also they also give you the same passion. So you find that what excites them, at the end of the day, you begin asking yourself, I like what you do. So I think about leadership, and I think that's also a common denominator. The reason I'm saying it this way is to demystify the person who is in the position, the title, to that being a common day experience. And personally, I think that's how I look at leadership. How have I been influenced over time to make the decisions I have made now? It becomes also a personal discovery journey, because a lot of our experiences personally are what we translate to other people, whether knowing or unknowing. So there's a lot of awareness of ourselves that we need to do. There's a lot of discovery of ourselves that we need to do, so that we can help others not go through our own pains and our own struggles, but rather use the pains and the struggles to make the experiences of other people an even better experience. I think that is the way I look at leadership.
I think that reminds me of something that Dr. Cha always says about holding up the ladder for others. And I think there's a certain quote around, is it like your candle won't burn, I don't know, something around won't burn any less bright when you go lighting other people's candles. So yeah, I believe you're doing great work in terms of building both innovators and leaders within the cyberspace. And I'm really glad to be having this conversation with you. And that brings me to some other thing about now in terms of both leadership and just personal growth, and that is learning. And in just as a position as yourself, just as a founder and someone who's trying to build something from scratch, I'm usually amazed by the sheer amount of things to do. So there's just unlimited buffet of problems, fires to put out, things that would be great, but then again, because you have to kind of like balance between your needs and wants. So how do you continue to learn as you also manage a program such as this? And then again, you also still work. So how do you still continue learning even within such a complex environment?
Wow. I think it comes to the territory is one of the responses I got from one of my mentors. Mm-hmm. You don't feel the weight if you have built enough capacity. You have to grow into it. You have to try, I would say, juggling a number of balls at the same time.
Yeah.
And it is a skill. You begin thinking, why don't I try something else? There's a good, interesting book by Dory Clark. It's called The Long Game. And one of the things that she talks about is a lot of the time as practitioners, you only ride one wave. And the wave in this case is career excellence. But what can happen if you ride many waves at the same time? And it's a skill that you develop over time. So from my own experience, there are times when what I'm doing can be overwhelming, but I'll just hang on for a bit. And as I hang on there, they say success is just is simply people who hang in there 5 minutes into it.
I have a wonderful quote to add to that. Yes. Like, success is the capacity to take pain. Yeah.
Oh man, sometimes that it becomes unbearable.
Yeah, it's very painful.
It is painful.
Yeah.
So the ability for you to ride many waves, it's not easy. These are not things you learn from school. you have to use the knowledge you have from school or from your mentors. It has to be practical knowledge. I think my journey personally has been the hurdles that I have had to overcome. Hanging in there. Sometimes you without the clarity, but with the bigger picture. The bigger picture is so important for me. The more I have an appreciation of what am I trying to do in the next 10 years, I can run through a lot of different pains, if I call them, because I know the bigger picture.
Yeah.
That helped me a lot, Alan, I would say, to just navigate through the small struggles of life. Because I know this is going to last, say, 3 months, 4 months. I can confidently even tell you these are my results. And that for me has been amazing. Talking to people who tell you next year, October, this is what I will be doing. And they're not asking. They're not second guessing themselves. They have practiced it for so long. It's become a system and a way of thinking that they have developed a system. Now, the system that is resilient enough that if they follow it, the way they wake up, what they do, their ability to communicate, their ability to give feedback and to receive feedback, that for them has become a system, and they can now confidently tell you that in 9 months, this is what I'm going to be doing. And that for me was always intriguing. I would ask my mentors, how do you do this? Yeah. I remember one day asking one of my mentors, how do you do all these things in a day? And he smiled. And with time over time, you get into the same shoes. And you also ask yourself, how did I how am I able to do this? So you every so often you have those full circle moments as well.
You mentioned a book, I believe The Long Game, and I'm curious in terms of what else are you reading, and is there any influential book or any other resources that you might want to share with us?
Reading is a journey that I started in 2021. And if there's one thing that I wish that I would done, that I would do actively, if I would go back to the start of my career, that would be reading. There is a lot of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge, which is a cliche that you get from books. There are a lot of lessons that you get from books. Imagine sitting with 10 industry experts in the same room, and you're about to make a decision and they tell you, don't do that. And you ask why? They tell you, because I made the same mistake. And you ask them, tell me about that. And they spend 2 hours giving you advice. And you're like, I'm so glad you told me that, because I will not make the same mistake. Imagine having those experts, leaders in the same room with you, not for 12 hours, but for as much as you want. The only difference is you just need to invest 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 Kenya shillings, and you have them for life. That for me has been the experience. I have learned from a lot of others. The likes of Dory Clark has very good books, especially in terms of inventing yourself as a career person. There's a very, among her good books is The Long Game. There is The Entrepreneur Review. There is, there are books by Beverly Jones. Beverly Jones has also really helped me, especially as I was finding meaning in my career. There's a book called Think Like an Entrepreneur but Act Like a CEO. Very good book. And actually, me reading that book was because of a comment I had. I went into a meeting, and in that meeting, somebody made a casual comment when I said what I do. And they said that you have to think like the owner. I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Why do I need to think like the owner? I'm not the owner. And I entertained that thought for some time, and gradually I realized in everything you do in life, you might be the cleaner, you might be an intern. If you think like the owner, you'll be different. That for me was a good book as well. Beverly Jones also has a good book. I think that was released last year, I think, called Happy at Work. That's also a good book. So I have all these different authors that I learn from, depending on the specific focus. If it's on entrepreneurship and business, there are books that I learn from. If it's around self-discipline, the likes of Brian Tracy have very good books on that. The likes of self-discipline. So there are a lot of authors that I learned from. Brian Tracy, Beverly Jones, Dory Clark, among the few.
Yeah.
And just to add onto that, I think 2 to 3 years ago, I was listening to one of the influential people. It was a short YouTube clip, and he said something that was interesting. He said, in life, if you invest knowledge in these 4 domains, come back an year later and see yourself become a different person, completely transformed. And he said, if you invest knowledge in understanding people and why they do what they do, that is around human nature. Number 2, negotiation. Number 3, money. And number 4 was sales. If you invest knowledge in those 4 areas, you become a different person. And I said, I think that's a good experiment, and it's been a while experiment. So,
Okay. I'm a big biography fan, and for me, it was something that I read from, I think Charlie Munger mentioned it, in terms of just making friends with the eminent dead. And yeah, you get to learn a lot from people. And right now, it's a matter of learning also from the eminent living, such as yourself now. And I want to come to the closing of this discussion in terms of, I have 2 questions for you, and taking you back to OCH. And could you just talk about the big chunky pieces of where OCH could go from here? So what does the future look like for the program, and what are some of the big initiatives that you'd like to focus on?
there are a lot of cybersecurity problems. This week, Microsoft Azure went down because of a distributed denial of service attack. 2 weeks ago, there was a global outage, which is the largest so far in history, that again affected Microsoft. When cybersecurity practitioners and enthusiasts who are starting their career, when they hear these news, they don't see themselves at all most of the time in the solutions. And those who see themselves in the solution only see themselves working in an organization. What is the bigger picture of what we're trying to do? We are actually going to come up with innovators. So think about the challenges, cybersecurity attacks that you've heard of in the country. Our goal is we are going to develop the right kind of environment. So that's what we're trying to do. We are going to develop an environment. We are going to create that environment that will allow our mentees to not only identify cybersecurity problems, but they will actually become active contributors into creating solutions to those problems. So is there a need? What are some of the needs? What are some of the problems that we have? We have problems around email attacks. Business executives are receiving phishing emails. What can we do about that? Can we have open source solutions that we can build in an effort to cap that gap that is there in the email security space? Phishing, distributed denial of service attacks. We have a lot of malware attacks. We have banks and financial institutions that are losing money. at the heart of what I do, I think Africa has a lot of potential. And I would want to leave a bit of that in my lifetime. I want to have that not only as a very good statement that we make, but I would want to help somebody who is passionate in cybersecurity. I would want to help them become an active contributor to solving the Africa cybersecurity problem that we have. That is a bigger picture, and I think that's what we're trying to solve actively in the next foreseeable future. We will identify and actively, as we begin building our mentees with the right skills, the next thing will be to identify those capstone projects that we can work towards, so that individually, each of them can go to an employer and they can showcase that these are my skills, and they're able to show beyond telling you.
Yeah. And so that's a really grand vision. Have you identified one or two things that could be get in the way of you to realize this reality?
Yes, I think there's only too much that you can do with a vision. The actualization of that vision requires resources. Resources in this case being systems that are working. Number two, people. And number three, money. I believe with time, as our vision gets clarity and we begin actualizing that vision, I believe we will attract the right resources. We will attract the people who are like-minded, who can invest in the vision. And we will have the right systems that can help us effortlessly get to the actualization of the vision.
Okay. Thank you so much, Martin. I just have one closing question for you, and it might be too early to kind of like know the answer to this, but when all is said and done, what does success look like for OCH?
Success for OCH is self-sustaining. If out of our cohort 1 into cohort 2, if the mentees can self-sustain it, where we are no longer learning from the Martins, but we are now learning from the mentees, that is success for me.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, and thank you.